Welcome to Just a Minute. My name is Nicholas Parsons, and as the minute waltz fades away, once more it's my huge pleasure to welcome our many listeners in this country and around the world, but also to welcome to the programme 4 dynamic and talented players who are going to play Just a Minute. I'm going to ask them to speak on the subject I give them, and they will try and do that without hesitation, repetition or deviation. And they are, seated on my right, Paul Merton and Jason Manford, and seated on my left, Graham Norton and Sue Perkins. Please welcome all 4 of them. Beside me sits Sharon Leonard, who's going to help with the score. She will blow a whistle when the 60 seconds are up. And this particular edition of Just a Minute is coming from the Radio Theatre in the heart of Broadcasting House. And we have a wonderfully warm, hyped-up audience just eager to get us going. So we'll begin the show this week with Paul Merton. Paul, a lovely subject, funny Valentine. Will you tell us something about that subject in this game, starting now?
It's a very popular song written by Richard Rodgers and Lorenz Hart in the 1930s for a show, I think, called Babes in Arms, although musicals aren't my specialist subject. And I think my favourite version is by Ella Fitzgerald. She has this most wonderful voice that I could listen to forever. I could tire of the operatic voice much quicker than I could ever...
Sue challenged.
Repetition of voice.
Yes.
Yes, there was too much voice there, yes. That's very charming of you, audience. We needn't clap every correct challenge.
that had a whiff of Wimbledon about it, that clap.
Good shot.
Yeah, very good, actually. Yeah.
And all the ball boys are running on now.
Come on, Sue!
So, Sue, a correct challenge. You get a point for that, of course. You take up the subject, and there are 39 seconds available, starting now.
Roses are red, violets are blue. You show a customary disregard for classical verse formation, so I'm dumping you, Sue. That was one Valentine's I had one year. For me, it's never a funny time of year. Well, February the 14th...
Paul challenged.
Repetition of year.
Yes, that's right. Well, listen, Paul.
What, no clap?
A correct challenge, and you got the subject back. And there are 25 seconds still available, Paul. Funny Valentine, starting now.
Your looks are laughable, unphotographable. You're my favourite work of art. Those words composed by the aforementioned gentleman are lined with the other bloke's music.
Repetition of music.
Yes,
I think so,
the word music, of course, yes. So, well, listen, the two of you.
Just me then.
You're bouncing off each other beautifully. And, Sue, you've got another correct challenge. Another point to you. 12 seconds. Funny Valentine, starting now.
Valentine's never funny. 14th.
Graham challenge.
I'm an idiot. I would take it back. No, I was going to say repetition of funny, but of course Funny Valentine is on the thing. So,
that's right. Yes, you can repeat the words together.
I know that, Nicholas.
I know. You have to remind the listeners why I made that decision.
And me.
And
well.
you. No. I don't need to remind you. You know. You've just repeated it, that
I'm
you know.
just an idiot.
And
I know.
It's been quite clear now.
Yes.
I
understand.
Right. Who challenged? It was incorrect challenge, wasn't it?
Yes, I know that.
But, Nicholas, why was it an incorrect challenge?
We all know that too.
So, Sue, you were speaking. You have 10 seconds still on Funny Valentine, starting now.
The middle of that dreadful month, you get loved-up men and women sitting at restaurants, stuffing themselves witless, exchanging padded cards with huge hearts on them. Flowers aplenty.
In this game, whoever is speaking when the whistle goes gains an extra point. It was Sue Perkins, and you can imagine she's in a strong lead at the end of the first round. Right, Jason Manford, we're going to ask you to take the next round. You're new to the game, and they've given you a ridiculously difficult subject to start off with. Nuclear energy.
Welcome to the fold, Jason.
Yes. I'm sure it's your pet subject, and they've chosen it for you, but Jason, can you try and talk on nuclear energy for 60 seconds, if you can, starting now?
What I don't know about nuclear energy isn't worth knowing. I presume a producer obviously must have read up on Wikipedia that I'm an expert at it.
I don't think they did. Unfortunately, it was a hesitation.
It was. Paul, a correct correct challenge to you. And
Yes.
you take over nuclear energy, and you've got 50 seconds starting now.
Nuclear energy is actually a very easy concept to understand. You have two particular parts, nuclear and energy, and you put them together and that's what you have. If you look at the sun, it is burning nuclear energy the whole time. Naturally, up there, that big red orb is sending all kinds of heat down towards us. And I believe nuclear energy was first discovered in the late 1940s by a man living in Basingstoke who was taking his dog for a walk one night. Little Sparky, his name was. He was a chippy little devil. And he saw a badger in the middle of the woods and he started chasing it. And that's how nuclear energy was born. Years later, as we look back now, 100 years ago, we think...
Sue challenge.
Repetition of years.
Yes.
Oh, yes.
I think you could have had him for a little deviation as well.
No, I believed every word
You
of that.
believed it. No, we let it go because we love it. Sue, a correct challenge. Another point to you. 8 seconds are still available. Tell us something about nuclear energy starting now.
I like to explain the principle of nuclear fusion by using the example of One Direction, the famed boy band. There you've got Harry Styles like an individual nucleus waiting to join with Liam.
So, Sue Perkins was again speaking as a whistle when gained the extra point has increased her lead at the end of the round. Graham Norton, will you begin the next round? Oh, the subject, karaoke. I don't know if there is something a favourite of yours, but will you talk on the subject? 60 seconds starting now.
I understand the impulse within people who want to sing. Good luck to you. But why would anyone want to be in a bar and listen to that? That is the part of karaoke I fail to comprehend, ladies and gentlemen. I believe they should be shut down. As I speak, I have a campaign ongoing to remove all karaoke establishments from the high street, for there are many. I pass several each day. Do they still exist? I'm not sure. Karaoke was invented in Japan, where businessmen like to perform songs to each other. I guess it's a way to let their hair down. I can't say that again.
Paul, you challenge.
A bit of a hesitation, I'm
There was
afraid.
a definite hesitation. But you went for 50 seconds. That's the irony of this game. Another 10 seconds, you'd have had 2 points.
Can I just say, at that point, it felt longer than The Hobbit.
Nothing's longer than The Hobbit.
But
does
Paul,
get
a
longer.
correct challenge, so you get a point, and you take over the subject. Karaoke, 10 seconds starting now. Jason, challenge.
I think there was hesitation. I thought I was in there.
Definitely.
I think we'll interpret it as hesitation, if
Yeah.
nothing else. Right. So, Jason, you've got in with 8.5 seconds on karaoke, starting now.
I'm a fan of karaoke. I sing quite often. I like a Tom Jones number or a Diana Ross, maybe a Tony Bennett, occasionally a Michael Bublé, or maybe the Jackson 5.
So Jason Manford was then speaking as a whistle when gained that extra point, and he's now leapt forward. He's in third place. He was before, but actually he's still in third place. Just behind Paul, and they're just behind Sue, and Graham, he's just behind them. Sue Perkins, it's your turn to begin. Oh, the subject now, a lovely one. The cheeses of France. Tell us something about all those lovely cheeses in 60 seconds, if you can, starting now.
The smell of a classic French cheese is something between Satan's underpants and John McCririck. Usually, say with a Mont d'Or, you got a wheel that ostensibly looks like a youth hostel duvet, but poke underneath and you get the most unctuous goo, which will lend a good 40 or 50 inches to the average waistline at Christmas. I know I've the physique of a pigeon. Thankfully, it's masked by this table. I love a good French cheese like a vacherin, but it does stay with you and stick to the throat. You can resemble a dairy Dalek, which is when you've eaten too much of the said cheese, it'll talk like this, as it clots up your major arteries. But who cares when it's so delicious? Never put it in your fridge. When you open it, it is simply the most repulsive odour you could ever wish to...
Oh, one of the flaws of just a minute, and you went for 49 seconds.
Oh, I went for 50.
50.
I'm sorry, you went for 54 seconds. Yes.
That is impressive.
I got my arithmetic wrong for a moment. There's 6 seconds left. Right. So, bad luck. But, Paul, your challenge.
But it was repetition on ever.
Yes, ever. Right, so you can't let one of those go, can you? 6 seconds. Tell us something about the cheeses of France, Paul, in 6 seconds, starting now.
When I think about the cheeses of France, undoubtedly for me, the king of them all is fromage de la Troie. It means...
So Paul Martin was speaking as a whistle when again that extra point is now equal with Sue Perkins in the lead, and they're followed by Jason Manford and Graham Norton in that order. And Paul, we're back with you to begin, and the subject now is power struggles. Tell us something about that subject in this game, starting now.
I was recalling the 1970s the other day when during industrial action we had power cuts that would hit London and various other cities in this great country of ours, and it seems implausible now that people would put up with repeated loss of their electricity. You would look at the local paper, the Evening Standard particularly, and see whether between 6 o'clock in the evening and 9 o'clock...
Repetition of o'clock.
The O bit, yes.
Yeah. You anticipated the repetition, but you've got in on the other subject, and you've got 37 seconds still available. Power struggles starting now.
Just a minute is one of the eternal power struggles. Us mere panellists vying for supremacy, but Nicholas overseeing it like the Lord of Misrule. Ultimately, he controls the show. It's Machiavellian, but you'd never know it because he dresses like very much the urban dandy. However... he operates his own strings. There's no puppet master. He rules supreme, and we know it. Afterwards, when we're getting into the giant jacuzzi together, we often look upon him as a father figure. He's gentle then, less commandeering. But even so, as we play this incredible game, we're aware that the nuances and dynamics shift with every turn.
Graham challenge.
Don't know
Just
what
dynamics.
Yes, it is. Well done. Well listened. Wow. And Graham, you've got in with 4 seconds.
Did she? I have no idea. I know I've heard the word before.
And you've got in with 4 seconds to go. Yes, excellent. And 4 seconds, power struggles, Graham, starting now.
Power struggles in the workplace are awful.
Well, it was hesitation.
No, it wasn't. We all knew there was another word coming.
Yes, we do. It said on the indicator board 2 minutes' time, but I was checking.
I think you may be correct, Paul, but I think he was pausing for effect. And
Yes, he was. The effect was he wasn't talking.
Yeah. I want to be generous here and give him the benefit of the doubt because he hasn't scored yet on this show. And he's so good. We want to love to have him here.
Absolutely.
I'll leave it to the audience. Do I give it to Graham or Paul? Right. Graham, you have a point for an incorrect challenge. You've got one second left.
Speaking it.
Don't overact it. Don't overact.
Right.
Power struggles starting now.
Power struggles.
So at the end of that round, Graham Norton was speaking as a whistle. When he has leapt forward, he's equal in third place with Jason, and the other two are out in the lead. And Jason, it's your turn to begin again. Oh, the subject is My Old Man. Will you tell us something about that subject in this game, starting now?
My dad is approaching 60 years old, which is the age where you stop caring what people think. And we often go on holiday together. We flew to Spain last year, where during the flight, the tannoy announcement came over and said, ladies and gentlemen, we will not be serving peanuts on board because there's somebody here, a passenger, who has an allergy. And if he gets into the air conditioning, they will be severely ill. Half an hour into the journey, I turned to my pa, and he is eating...
Oh, it's a wicked game, isn't it?
Are you going to do me repetition for that? Because they were all different sounds. The first one was... The second one was...
It sounded exactly as if it was complete repetition. So,
It's a harsh, unloving mistress, this game.
the benefit of the doubt went against you last time, Paul, so you have it now, definitely. And you have 30 seconds on My Old Man, starting now.
Ian Jury wrote a beautiful song called My Old Man, and when I think back to my father now, who's living in Ireland, they still listen to this show via the internet. I'm lying, I have no idea what that is. But I think that I, in the end, have looked like my father as I get older. In a strange way, he's begun to resemble me. It's peculiar, it's DNA, I suppose, family genes being passed from one generation to another.
Graham challenge.
Repetition of family.
Good, it was so
Yes.
boring.
And Graham, you've got him with 7 seconds to go
he's good.
on My Old Man, starting now.
I think I may get a new old man. The one I've had is been about 7 years. He's real back to this.
Right, so Graham, Norton speaking, then
Nicholas,
it'll
I just Googled,
Yeah.
and it's actually all one word. So
It's a good attempt, but I don't believe you. And where did you Google while we were
just
actually
my
talking?
inner Google.
Right. Sorry, Jason. No, I'd love to help you, but I'll maybe find a moment later on.
I just apologise. I just realised I am covered in dog
Dog
hair.
hair.
I'm like.
Do you have a dog?
No, I do.
That's
Well,
just disturbing.
This looks like I've
There's
been-
half a bearded collie
No,
on that
see-
sleeve alone.
I'm like some crazy old dog trainer who shows up at a station
Repetition
wagon.
of dog. Stop playing this game now.
Well, give Jason a bonus point.
Charity, I'll take it. I'll take it.
Right. And Graham, it's your turn to begin. The subject after that last round, I think, is a rather apt one. It's desperation. Tell us something about desperation in just a minute, starting now.
Ladies and gentlemen, look at this face. It is desperation personified. I long to win. Just a minute, once. I have played it over the years many times, and yet have never passed the post in first place. Oh, occasionally.
Jason, you've challenged.
Well, yeah, challenged. There was.
He has one.
There was the.
Have I?
Yeah, deviation. Yeah,
Many
you have
times,
one.
yes.
Yeah.
You have one,
It
yes.
remember.
meant nothing to me.
Well spotted. Well spotted, Jason.
I was just. It was, I was only listening to that episode the other day. And
You must have heard that recording.
Oh,
Yeah,
amazing.
right. So a correct challenge, Jason. Very quick there.
You're a mine of information.
Yeah. And 44 seconds available still. Desperation starting now.
It's quite an apt word, desperation, now, because I'm doing a subject I have no idea about. I'm not really desperate for anything in particular, other than the usual things of air and food and water and occasional love from family and children. My children...
I love the fact it was family and children. Never the twain
Yeah.
shall meet.
Paul. Yes.
Repetition.
Yeah, repetition, right. Correct challenge. 27 seconds are still available. Talk to us about desperation starting now.
One of the most desperate characters in history is the comic book person by that very same name with Dan coming at the end of it. Although I never understood why he should be a picture of desperation. He was a huge figure eating cow pies and bending railway tracks across his barrel-like chest for no reason whatsoever as far as I could tell. But I didn't understand his mental condition.
Graham challenge.
Repetition of understand.
Yes.
Yes.
Indeed.
Is that
right.
true?
No.
I'm constantly surprised that I...
And
so.
Graham,
Sounds
you've cleverly got him with 2 seconds to go. On desperation starting now.
Desperation is also used in a song title, which I will now reveal to you.
So Graham Norton speakers a whistle when gained that extra point and really has leapt forward. He's equal with Sue in second place, 1 point behind Paul and 2 or 3 in front of Jason Manford. And Sue, it's your turn to begin, and the subject is the story of Noah's Ark. Tell us something about that in this game, starting now.
One day, the Lord was well sad with his flock and decided to bring upon them not a plague or locusts or any such thing, but a flood. However, there was one righteous man called Noah, so to him, he said, can't do the voice, "Go build an ark." That was an approximation. It was probably deeper. He had a massive beard. He was basically Brian Blessed, but omniscient. Imagine the potency of that, ladies and gentlemen. The specific instructions were incredible. He had to build a boat of certain length and diameter to house breeding pairs of every known animal on the land. Biblical scholars estimate that's around 45,000 creatures. Imagine clearing up that dung.
Graham, challenge.
Two things. One, I'm sure I've heard this story before. And secondly, repetition of imagine.
Yes, right, imagine. Yeah. Well, listen, Graham, right. And there's 19 seconds for you to talk about the story of Noah's Ark, starting now.
Given that one of the rules of this game is you can have no repetition, it seems a particularly cruel tale to ask us to retell, given that every single animal appears twice. That proves very hard when recounting this fable from the Bible. A book, you know. Oh, I don't have to reveal that to this.
So Graham Norton was then speaker of the whistle when he gained that extra point once again, and he's leapt forward, and he's now in the lead. There we are. And Paul, it's your turn to begin. Getting your 5 a day. Tell us something about that particular saying in this show. Starting now.
I used to get 5 a day when I was younger, but I could barely walk. These days, it means about 5 minutes of exercise on my stationary bicycle. It's a wonderful machine because you get the heart pumping for the allotted time that I mentioned, and it seems to me that once you've raised your metabolism, the weight starts to drop off, providing you also have a proper diet. 5 a day. If we think about the Marx brothers, there was only 4 of them. Actually, there was more, but 2 of them didn't go into the business. There was Sado, who never got a laugh in his entire life, so that was a bit of a nuisance for him.
Sue, challenge.
Possible deviation?
I think it is, because 5 a day refers to food, that intake that goes into your stomach, isn't it? And Marx Brothers go into your mental state and entertain you and amuse you.
I'm never going to disagree with you.
Because you want the subject and you've got it.
You're just very
And you've got
commanding,
26 seconds starting now.
5 a day is supposed to be good for you. Fruit and vegetables. The rainbow basket. I don't want it. I like beige food because that means it's carbohydrates. Give me a scone, bun, tart, cake, bread, nice stuff. I don't want mange tout, particularly when they're air freighted from Kenya in the middle of...
Jason, challenge.
There was a repetition of don't want.
Yes, there was.
I was being very emphatic.
Yes.
You're right.
Well listened, Jason. Well listened. The virgin of the team, and there you are.
The night is still young, isn't it, Nicholas? Always with the newcomers up on the roof at midnight. It interferes with the shipping forecast along with it.
So, Jason, you've cleverly got in with 9 seconds to go on the subject of getting your 5 a day, and you start now.
Since the new year started, I do like to get my 5 a day, generally with fruit, but I also like to include things like Jaffa cakes.
Paul, challenge.
Well, it was a repetition of like. I also like.
Yeah, I do like to get my 5 a day, and I do like to get.
It's harsh, but they were quite close together.
And Paul, you've cleverly got him with 2 seconds to go on getting your 5 a day, starting now.
Broccoli, pears, apples.
So, right, we're moving into the final round, I've been told.
What?
Well, I tell you what, if
I
you...
haven't finished my wine.
Well, let me give you the score as we go into the final round. Jason, who's not played the game before with us, is trailing a little. But he's in a very strong 4th position. He's only 2 points behind Sue Perkins, and she's a great exponent of the game. And she's only 1 point behind Graham Norton, who says he never wins, but he's won more than once. And he's only 1 point behind Paul Merton. So it's all to play for if you're interested in the points and not the quality of the show. Right. Jason!
Don't pick at that thread.
It's your turn to begin. And it's a lovely subject, showing off. all what we have to do in our profession, but talk about it 60 seconds starting now.
Well, it's a very odd thing showing off, as people see it as a negative in this country, whereas if you were in America, it's seen as a positive. It's in their constitution, under freedom of speech. You have to do it. And I think in this country, what we should do is all show off, all brag, all have a go at anything you want to have a go at. Because you look at the Olympics, would we have been as successful at the Olympics if we told children,
Sue,
Repetition of
right.
Olympics.
But it was on loads. Do you know what I mean? Like, so,
To be fair, it was. It really was.
Yeah.
They let a few other things go, Jason, but you're quite
Fair
right.
enough.
You did repeat Olympics. So, Sue, you got in with 40 seconds to go on showing off starting now.
A friend of mine once said to me, I like to back into the limelight, which essentially means I'll choose when I show off. I can be a peahen, dowdy, not interested until somebody gets me on a stage, and then the gloves are off. Literally sometimes, if I'm doing a burlesque show. Don't want to see that, not at my age. Sadly, the midriff has expanded to the point where leather goods won't really fit round it. However, in the right moment, when I'm feeling good, I like to explode in front of people, the best side of myself, perhaps, although it's hard to live with if you're a partner of mine. This job is fraught. There's two sides to us, I imagine. One likes to stay at home and read books. The other likes to effuse in public. Don't know
Jason
what I'm
Chandler.
talking
Thought
about.
hesitation there.
There was a
Stop
hesitation
me.
there, yes. Sue,
Yes.
we've stopped.
Good.
Right. You were showing off brilliantly, but you did pause at one point.
Good.
And Jason
Well
picked
done.
it up, and he's got him with 4 seconds to go, showing off starting now.
I suppose I'm a professional show-off in all respects. Most comedians are, and people often...
So Jason Manford was then speaking to the whistle when gained that extra point, and he has leapt forward. He's still in 4th place, but it's a brilliant 4th place. It really is. Because, I mean, it's so fair. He's only 1 point behind equal in 3rd place Graham Norton and Sue Perkins, and they're only 1 point behind Paul Merton, who we say, Paul, you're the winner this week. Thank you. And in the range, we to say thank you to these 4 fine players of the game, Paul Merton, Jason Manford, Sue Perkins and Graham Norton. I thank Sharon Leonard, who's helped me with the score, blown her whistle so delicately on the 60 seconds moment. And we thank our audience here in the Radio Theatre. We're grateful to our producer, to Lucia Galani. We're indebted to Ian Messiter, who created this amazing game. And it's lovely to be with this audience here. Tune in again the next time we play Just a Minute. Until then, from all of us here, including me, Nicholas Parsons, goodbye. Thank you. Welcome to Just a Minute. Hello. My name is Nicholas Parsons, and as the minute waltz fades away, once more it's my huge pleasure to welcome our many listeners from around the world, and also to welcome to the programme 4 exciting, talented performers. And they are seated on my right, Paul Merton and Alun Cochrane, and seated on my left, Gyles Brandreth and Stephen Mangan. Will you please welcome all 4 of them? Beside me sits Sharon Leonard. And she's going to help me keep the score, and she will blow a whistle when the 60 seconds have elapsed. As usual, I'm going to ask them to speak on a subject that I give them, and they will try and do that without hesitation, repetition, or deviation. And this particular show is coming from the Radio Theatre in the heart of Broadcasting House. Very solemn moment. And we're all tense, ready to go. And we're going to ask Paul Merton to begin the show. And the subject here, a lovely one to begin with, Treasure Island. Paul, tell us something about Treasure Island in this game, starting now.
One of the few novels to be written by 3 men, Robert, Louis and Stephen's son. It was a book that came out towards the end of the 19th century, and I remember studying it for English at school, and the characters are hugely drawn in my imaginative memory. I remember Long John...
Giles is challenged.
A repetition of remember.
You
remember and memory?
Yeah, they are 2 different words.
No, we had remember twice.
Oh, did we? I'm sorry.
I think you did, yes, I remember. Yes. So, Gyles, that was a correct challenge. There are still 43 seconds available, and the subject is Treasure Island, and you begin now.
When this book first appeared, it was serialized in a publication called Little Folks under the author Captain George North, who was indeed this triple-named figure that Paul has already mentioned to us. I was introduced to the book when I was a child going to the Mermaid Theatre and seeing that great actor Sir Bernard Miles playing the cook Long John Silver. He also had...
Alun, you challenge.
It's sort of a deviation thing, really, because I can't believe Gyles was ever a child. He's just...
You mean he was sort of created in a laboratory?
You know,
like on a petri dish?
you know, you meet some people that you just think have always been adults.
Yeah.
You're one of those.
Alun, you know, I enjoyed that interruption so much.
Oh, good.
I'm going to give you a bonus point for that.
I'll have that, yeah.
Yeah, right. But unfortunately, Gyles was interrupted, and he was a child once, and I'm sure he did childish things as well. Well, he's trying to the moment, because he said he read this wonderful novel by Robert Louis Stevenson. Anyway, Gyles, you have a point because you were interrupted. You keep the subject. 19 seconds still available. Treasure Island, starting now.
It is the most remarkable of stories, and the characters within it are quite extraordinary when you are with them.
Oh.
He made up a word, mister. Mister, he made up a word.
Yeah, I know, he did, yeah.
Didn't he, mister?
My problem is I missed out on childhood.
Yeah.
He tried to get round repeating extraordinary, and he did that. But I agree with you, Paul. You have a correct challenge, and there are 14 seconds still available. You tell us more about Treasure Island, starting now.
Ben Gunn was a part played by Spike Milligan in the Mermaid production of this book, Treasure Island, and I was greatly...
Stephen challenged.
I don't know, was that hesitation?
It was almost hesitation.
Almost. It was, yeah.
Well...
Yeah. Was it?
It sets a precedent.
I know.
Be careful.
I have a very sinking feeling in my
Stephen,
soul.
I think, as you've never played the game before, and the audience obviously want to hear from you on the subject, I will be generous, and I think Paul will be generous, and say, yes, that was a correct challenge, and say that you have 6 seconds available. Treasure Island, starting now.
As a 12-year-old, I discovered that my school was putting on a production of Treasure Island, and I knew what I had to do with the help of Mr. Smalls.
In this game, whoever is speaking when the whistle goes gains an extra point. And at the end of that round, I think they've all got a point each. No, Stephen's got 2 points. Alun, will you take the next round? Subject is City Break. 60 seconds, starting now.
The city break is a wonderful thing. I have enjoyed many over the years, including one especially memorable one where I took my wife to Prague and took her up the funicular. It was a lovely time. It's a train journey. Grow up, Radio 4. It was a delightful time. We look...
Paul challenged.
I don't think anyone's ever told Radio 4 to grow up before.
So what's the challenge when the rules are just a minute?
None, really. I just wanted to point out a unique event.
All right, well, I gave Alun a bonus point a while ago. You get a bonus point for that. He did repeat
Yes,
three
he did,
things.
several things.
3 things, but nobody challenged, so you got away with it, Alun. And you've got 44 seconds still on City Break, starting now.
An irony of the city break is that it is often taken by people who already live in a city. They seem to think this vision of urban decay around me here is not good enough. I'd like a different set of these crumbling buildings and museums and galleries that I do not visit. Why don't I go away to a small European city and enjoy that as a sort of ideal?
Paul challenge.
It was a very, very slight hesitation.
It was a definite hesitation.
Yeah, wasn't it?
Yours was a slight one, and we
Yeah.
were a bit harsh with you, but it doesn't matter, Paul. You've got the subject, and there are 21 seconds. Tell us something about City Break, starting now.
Unlike Alun, I don't think most cities in the world are crumbling. Look at London. It's magnificent. Do you know the audience here in the broadcasting house at the B Broadcasting Corporation? They say to themselves, we live in this mighty metropolis. We are fantastic. Why should we go to Prague?
Oh, yeah.
Well, who interrupted that? It was patriotic.
Charles.
It was Broadcasting House, then B Broadcasting Corporation, in order to avoid saying BBC.
Yes.
It was, yeah.
There were 2 broadcasts right earlier
Yeah.
on. It was quite a while ago, too.
It was, yeah. I think it was the last series, wasn't it?
9 seconds you've got, Gyles, on City Break, starting now.
The City Break is a dance performed by teenage girls in English cities on Friday and Saturday nights. They appear late in the evening wearing their thongs, throwing up over one another.
So at the end of that round, Gyles Brandreth speaking as the whistle went, got that extra point, and he's now got 3. Paul's got 3. Stephen has 2. Alun has 1. It's very exciting, isn't it? I'm glad you agree. Stephen, will you begin the next round? The subject, Casanova. I don't know if you're an amorist or not, but tell us something about that character in this game, starting now.
Casanova was a world-famous lover who lived in Venice in the 18th century, if I'm not mistaken. He was described as being tall and dark, with scented, powdered, elaborately curled hair. They could, in fact, be describing me. His last words were said to have been, "I have lived..."
Paul Jones.
No, doesn't matter. No, it was silly.
Well, let's hear from it.
No, well, it was... No, it's really not worth it.
They want to hear.
Okay, go on. Well, Stephen said I'm like Casanova, but he doesn't live in the 17th century, so I was going to say that was deviation, but that seemed to be very mean and picky, so but that is my challenge,
But
basically.
he looks exactly like everybody's idea of Casanova.
Absolutely.
He is.
He looks
can I
like
say-
Frank Finlay.
This is elaborately scented hair.
It is. It is glorious.
Yeah.
It really is.
Giles is
Stephen,
upstream of it.
You were interrupted, and the joy of being interrupted is you get a point, and you'll be able to gather your strength and your breath, and you continue with the subject with 41 seconds to go, starting now.
His last words were supposed to have been, "I have lived as a philosopher and died as a Christian," but perhaps they should have been, "I have existed as a love machine and am expiring totally exhausted." Casanova is a word that possibly means new house in some language or other, but I wouldn't know because I'm terrible at speaking foreign tongues. He wrote a book called The Story of My Life, which sounds like a song from a musical by Andrew Lloyd Webber, but was in fact the memoirs of this famous man who couldn't keep his trousers on. Way back when, and
Can I say, it wasn't hesitation. I suddenly realised it was a cry of ecstasy.
It was close to orgasm, I'll give you that.
It was Casanova absolutely being... So I interrupted merely to applaud. It wasn't...
Thank you.
Well, you've done it with 3 seconds to go.
well, isn't that convenient?
Another 3 seconds, you'd have had the thing right at the end.
Oh, my gosh.
But what is your challenge, Giles?
I'm afraid it was hesitation. I
It
think
was hesitation. It collapsed, wasn't it?
It sounded like... Well, yes, it sounded like something
Well,
interrupt us, but
have
I
to
think
be
it was
fair.
hesitation.
Within the rules of just a minute and say it was a correct challenge. So, Giles, you have the subject now with 3 seconds on Casanova, and you haven't won any friends in this audience. And you start now.
Casanova was the Silvio Berlusconi of his day.
So Giles getting that point when the whistle went, gained an extra point and has moved forward. He's in the lead. And Giles, it's also your turn to begin. And the subject now is scrabbling around. I don't know if it's something you do much, but will you talk about it? 60 seconds starting now.
I have been scrabbling around ever since I discovered the name that goes by the name of Scrabble.
Stephen challenge.
Couple of names. A name
did
that goes
say name.
by the name.
Oh, very good.
Stephen, you're connecting very rapidly. And you've got in there with 54 seconds to go on scrabbling around, starting now.
Scrabbling around is what my brain is doing at this very moment, wondering what to say about this subject. My dismal noggin, the solitary neurons firing across its cavernous space, and nothing is coming to mind. I have no clue what to do, how to speak, what to talk. Oh, help me, Lord.
Giles, your challenge.
I sensed that Stephen was turning to the older man in his life. This is what happens at these crisis points. When you don't know what to do, you just reach out, and here I am, Stephen.
Thank you.
So what's your challenge within the rules of just a minute?
I'm just taking my fingers out of his hair.
Please don't.
That's sweet of you. Hesitation. He called, yes, he was slowing down. Oh, my Lord, there was deviation leading into hesitation. It was he was coming to a conclusion, yes, it was.
No, he didn't hesitate. He repeated something, but it's too late now. I said it was too late, Alan.
Oh.
So it was an incorrect challenge, and you still have 35 seconds to go scrabbling around if you can. Starting now.
On Thursdays, I like to get a lorry load of gravel, have it poured onto my front lawn, and scrabble about in my underwear. You should try it. Honestly, it's much better than it sounds, except when you get bits of that Sony substance wedged in your...
Alan challenge.
Slight hesitation.
I think there was a slight hesitation there, yes. He was sort of scrabbling to a halt, wasn't he, really?
No, but it was very exciting.
Paul, correct challenge. I'll give you the benefit of the doubt there. 21 seconds available, scrabbling around, starting now.
If you're looking to plant your tulips for next spring, the best thing to do is get your fingers into the soil and start scrabbling around. If, like me, you live on a volcano, this is not as easy as you might think. But the dedicated gardener can always scrabble around to find what he needs in order to nurture them young plants, green shoots.
So Paul Merton was then speaking as the whistle went, gained that extra point. He's now in second place, 1 point behind Gyles. He's equal with Stephen Mangan. Alan is trailing just a little. Paul,
Yes.
It's your turn to begin.
Oh, good.
And the subject is short-term memory. Very apt for this game, and your time starts now.
Sorry, is it my go? Short-term memory is something that we have all kinds of memory. We have short, we have long, perhaps even medium exists there somewhere. As we get older, it is easier to remember what happened to us when we were younger rather than what happened. Oh, no, that's what happened to us.
Giles, your challenge.
Self-confessed hesitation.
And
Yes.
it doesn't matter if it's self-confessed or not, it was. And 47 seconds are still available, Giles, for short-term memory, starting now.
As those of you who have a long-term memory will recall, I was a member of Parliament until the people spoke, the bastards. And the worst thing about being an MP is that you encounter all sorts of strangers who call themselves constituents. These are ghastly people who have some sort of claim on you, and they always challenge you.
Alan, challenge.
I never.
Nice to hear democracy in action, but we had two people. We had the people.
Yeah, we had two
that
people.
spoke
The people
first.
spoke. The people spoke at the beginning.
Ghastly people, I think was the other phrase. Or voters, as we call them.
So I think it was good you interrupted him before he dug himself a deeper grave there. And 27 seconds are still available, Paul. Short-term memory starting now.
I can recall the early days of my childhood. I was 3 years old. I stuck my little finger in that corner bit of the door and that thing of wood slammed against it and I felt the pain. But now I can also bring to my mind what happened last Thursday. So I'm reasonably confident that my short-term memory is as good as the version that I mentioned earlier, which is expanded and stretched further than short would suggest.
So Paul Merton, speaking as the whistle went, gained that extra point. He's now equal with Gyles Brandreth in the lead, and then Stephen Mangan, and then Alan Cochrane. And Alan, we'd like you to begin the next round. The subject is My Mate Dan.
My mate...
My Mate Dan, that's what's here. So talk about My Mate Dan, starting now.
My mate Dan said, follow the van and don't dilly-dally on the way. Off went the vehicle, and with it that little rhyme. I have a friend called Dan. He's a lovely man by dint of fact that he's imaginary. He doesn't annoy me in...
Paul challenge, yes.
we had a
definite there, yes.
It's a definite giveaway, isn't it, of a hesitation?
Yes.
That much I do
So
know.
44 seconds are still available, Paul. Can you tell us something about My Mate Dan, starting now?
My mate Dan, he's a lovely geezer. He's got a lock up round the back of him. Anything you want, hose pipes, water buffalo, anything you want, he's got the lot. I tell you something, my mate Dan, he's an absolute diamond. He's a...
Why do I talk so quickly? I can say diamond again.
Yeah.
So I stopped.
You started on something which you couldn't continue.
Yeah.
Giles, correct challenge. I know what it is. What
Yes,
is it?
it was hesitation.
Yes.
Yeah.
35 seconds available. My Mate Dan, starting now.
I, as a child, had Desperate Dan in the Dandy.
Alan challenge.
I dispute that Gyles was a child.
I'm not sure he's an adult either.
Alan, we enjoyed your interruption. I mean, obviously he was a child once, and he even had childish ways, I'm sure, but we don't know. But we give you a bonus point because we enjoyed the interruption. Gyles was interrupted, so he has the subject, and there are 33 seconds on My Mate Dan, starting now.
On Mother Kelly's doorstep, down Paradise Road, is the song that I was introduced to by the great Danny LaRue, known as Patrick Carroll when he was a young man in Ireland, but he came over to these shores and became one of the most wonderful female impersonators. He was my mate Dan, and to see him in frocks would excite the propensities of Stephen sitting next to me, because this was a man who could throw a party.
Stephen challenged.
We had two mans.
There's two mans who talk about this man.
You can't get enough.
You know. Well, no. And Stephen's cleverly got in with 4 seconds to go. And the subject is, Stephen, you have another point, and you've got My Mate Dan starting now.
When I played Dan Moody in I'm Alan Partridge, Steve Coogan stood in a car park.
Right. So Paul Merton and Giles Brandreth are battling it out in the lead, both equal there. Stephen's not only 1 point behind. And Stephen, we'd like you to begin the next round. And as a serious thespian on occasions, will you tell us something now about the Globe Theatre? 60 seconds starting now.
The Globe Theatre, as it currently stands, is a magnificent recreation of the Elizabethan place of the same name, a reconstruction ruined only by the occasional overhead helicopter or someone's mobile phone going off during the middle of Hamlet. I've once been on the stage, and it summed up the experience in one word: drafty. The wind whistles over the top of the roof, down across the heads of the groundlings, right into the actor's face, and...
Paul challenge.
Deviation.
Why?
Well, the wind doesn't hit you like that at all. I've played the Globe many times, and the wind does not come over the roof, over the head of the ground, and hit you on the face.
I'm much taller than you are, Paul.
Played it last 12 years.
I was
Paul,
on
I'm
stilts.
sure that if you're standing, and I've stood there on the stage...
So have I, 12 times I've done it.
I know, but you can feel the wind. It doesn't...
All right, 14.
I agree, but it probably doesn't hit you in the face.
No, it doesn't.
But he was making a colloquial phrase to convey that the wind comes in there.
He was
It's
describing
open-
what the wind does.
It's open to the sky and so forth. The wind, you can feel the wind. And I
And
think
what,
it's...
what a picture, given his locks. Can you imagine the wind going through him?
Paul, I gave you the benefit of the doubt on a challenge just recently. I'm going to give Stephen the benefit of the doubt and say, right, Stephen, you still have it. Well, we've always had it, but you...
Never lost it.
You've got the subject now. 30 seconds till the Globe Theatre starting now.
Despite appearing in an Elizabethan play, I didn't need a wig, which won't.
Giles challenge.
Repetition of Elizabethan.
You had Elizabethan before, the Elizabethan Theatre. Right, so Giles, it's gone very quiet suddenly, hasn't it? I don't know why. 26 seconds are still available, Giles. Tell us something about the Globe Theatre starting now.
When I was a child, I believed that the Globe Theatre was named after an
Just give Alan the bonus point. We know where we are.
I nearly left it, but sometimes you have to give the people what they want, I
So what is your challenge?
think. It's disputing that Gyles was a child again.
Well, I think we have established he was a child once.
I've
And he's
still
grown
seen
up.
no proof, Nicholas.
No, but you're getting a lot of bonus points, aren't you? All
Okay.
right. Giles, you were
Here,
interrupted. You have 20 seconds. The Globe Theatre starting now.
In fact, the theatre I am thinking of is in Shaftesbury Avenue, called after an artichoke.
Alan challenge.
Deviation. It's a different theatre.
No, it isn't.
No, it is the
Oh, is
Globe
it?
Theatre,
No,
yes.
it's the same theatre.
Oh, I
changed
feel a
its name.
fool.
It's changed its name. The Globe Theatre, yes.
Oh, right.
I worked there.
Yeah.
Yes,
Well.
years ago.
I'm learning.
Shakespeare gave you the job, didn't he? Shakespeare gave him the job. They were looking for somebody who could play older parts.
You are absolutely wicked. You know you are. And I'll show you how generous I am. It was a lovely joke. Give him a bonus point for that, then. All right. Giles, you were interrupted. There was a Globe Theatre in Shaftesbury Avenue. It's now changed its name. It's the... is it the
I'm
Cub?
about to tell you what it's called.
Are you? All right. And you have 16 seconds starting now.
It is now called the Gielgud Theatre,
That's
named
right.
after Sir John of that particular surname. Though I recall it when it was known as the Lobe. That was the week the G fell off. And they could not afford to replace it because of the salary they were paying to Nicholas Parsons, starring in There's a Girl in My Soup and her...
No, the salaries were not. It was a review. It started a lyric review, and then we went to the Globe Theatre, and we called it the Globe Review. And it was when they did intimate review, you know, in the 50s. It's all gone. Gyles, you got the extra point for speaking as a whistle went. You've taken the lead, 2 ahead of Paul, and you're going to begin the next round because it's your turn. And the subject now is the Big Bang. Tell us something about the Big Bang. It's all right. Starting now.
If you want the Big Bang...
Paul Challenge.
Repetition of if.
First time round, of course, Nicholas hadn't started us.
That's right.
Right, OK, 59 seconds. The Big Bang, Gyles, starting now.
I am not interested in theory or things that happened 77 billion years ago, or neurons and hydrogen. What I want to tell you about is the Big Bang that occurred in my life this very week when I went to the local supermarket and tried to use one of those machines to pay for the goods as I left. It was a nightmare. The whole experience has set my pacemaker off. I'm now on drugs. What I tried to do was bang this wretched machine as I put down the groceries on one side. It said, "Take them off. They are not allowed here." None of the little cards could work as I tried to pay for my goods. It was a humiliating and disgusting experience, and I am now hoping no longer to have a big bang anyway. When I go to shop, I want a little village boutique where I can buy my grapes from a person, not the Big Bang.
Paul Challenge.
Well, I don't know. This is stretching the definition of Big Bang a bit, isn't it? I mean, every time I talk about village shops, boutiques, small goods, it's a long way from the Big Bang.
Yeah, if the subject had been a Big Bang, I think you would have been justified.
If you'd heard this Big Bang, you'd say this was the Big Bang.
I don't think there were any bangs except the bangs you were making.
And there weren't any bangs except the bangs I was making. Have you ever tried using one of these machines, Nicholas?
No, I wouldn't dare. I wouldn't.
Normally, people of our vintage, a nice young lady comes up to help us through it.
That's right.
You know,
yes.
that's normally what happens.
What are we
to
talking
us.
about now? 1 minute we're shopping, the next minute we're...
Yeah, no, there's not always nice. She's great.
Set of jump leads.
She's often very surly.
What you want?
Yeah. Give me some jump leads, I'll plug them into Stephen Langham here, and that'll set me alight when it... Right. Paul, benefit of the doubt to you.
OK.
You have the subject, 13 seconds, the Big Bang, starting now.
Our universe was created by a Big Bang, according to the scientists. They can almost tell us exactly what the situation was like within a millisecond of the Big Bang occurring. But these particularly educated men of science cannot inform us what was there before.
All right, so Paul Merton was speaking as the whistle went, gained that extra point. I'm getting rather dramatic now because we're moving into the final round. And Paul Merton and Giles Brandreth are equal in the lead, and only a point or two behind them is Stephen Mangan, and a point or two behind him is Alun Cochrane. And Paul, it's your turn to begin, and it's a phrase we've heard often. It was just an ordinary day. Will you tell us something about that subject in this game, starting now?
It was just an ordinary day. I climbed out of bed at 6:30, moved down towards the living room, made my way out of the house down to the newsagents. There, I was met by a man who wore a long grey overcoat. He whispered something in my ear that at first didn't make any sense. He said, "The pigeons are flying high in Krakow this evening." At the time, I didn't know that he was the Polish correspondent for the Bird Weekly Avery magazine, which had been published in that city for the last 200 years. Before I knew where I was, I felt the world swirling around me. A hole opened up in my feet and I dived in. When I came round, I was on a slow boat to Cairo. I reeked of sardines and hair oil. What had happened to me over the last 15 days? I checked the calendar in my pocket. It told me the day was March 31st. And yet I distinctly remember that when I left my abode, it had been December the 15th. Where had the intervening months had gone? It was then I saw a spectre coming towards me.
Well, what a way to bring the show to an end with such a flourish. Unbelievable.
I'm glad you whistled when I had no idea what the next word was going to be. But then I didn't throughout the rest of it, so...
So I think you may have guessed now who's won, but I just say that Alun, who hasn't played quite so often, finished up in a very powerful fourth place, and And then it was Stephen who's only played it once before, and that was on television, so he did very well. Gyles, who's played a lot, finished up 2 points behind Paul Merton. So we say, Paul, you are our winner this week. So I say thank you to these 4 fine players of the game, Paul Merton, Alun, Cochrane, Stephen Mangan and Gyles Brandreth. I think Sharon Leonard, who's helped me with the score, blown her whistle with such aplomb when the 60 seconds elapsed. We are grateful to our producer, to Lucia Gilani. We're deeply indebted to Ian Messiter, who created this amazing game. And we're grateful to this lovely audience here in the Radio Theatre, who've cheered us on our way magnificently. So from the audience, from me, Nicholas Parsons, and the team, goodbye. And tune in the next time we play Just a Minute! Yay! Welcome to Just a Minute. Thank you. Hello, my name is Nicholas Parsons, and as the minute waltz fades away, once more it's my huge pleasure to welcome our many listeners in this country and around the world, but also to welcome to the programme 4 exciting, talented performers who are going to play Just a Minute. And they are, seated on my right, Paul Merton and Julian Clary, and seated on my left, Jenny Eclair and Richard Herring. Please welcome all 4 of them. I'm going to ask them to speak on a subject that I will give them, and they will try and do that without hesitation, repetition, or deviation. Seated beside me is Trudy Stevens, who's going to help me with the score and blow the whistle when the 60 seconds have elapsed. And we start with Paul Merton. And Paul, oh, what a good subject to begin with. Marble Arch. Tell us something about Marble Arch in this game, starting now.
I recall John Betjeman's poem, Marble Arch, very near Hyde Parch. Betjeman's rhyme scheme was...
Richard, you've phoned.
Repetition of Betjeman?
Yeah, Betjeman.
No, Betjeman and Betjemans.
Paul, it wasn't quite clear what you were saying, so
yes.
You don't mind. You're very generous, I know.
Yes.
I'll give it to Richard, because he's only played the game twice before, and we'd love to hear from you on this subject, Richard. And you have Marble Arch, and there are 51 seconds starting now.
Marble Arch is, of course, named after Sir Ian Marble, the famous Victorian explorer who discovered Dagenham. It hadn't been discovered until 1847.
Jenny, challenge.
Too discovered.
He discovered too much.
Did I? Yeah. Oh, shut up.
The audience agrees. Jenny, a point to you for a correct challenge. There are 41 seconds still available. Tell us something about Marble Arch, starting now.
Marble Arch is home to the largest Marks and Spencers in London, therefore a mecca for middle-aged women who throng from all corners of the country in pack-a-macks with umbrellas to find that ultimate pleated skirt or flattering pair of jeans with a little bit of elastic around the waist. We know what we like. It's also designed by the man who was called John Nash.
Paul, you challenged.
There's some sort of hesitation there.
There's definite hesitation, yes. So, Paul, you've got the subject back again. You've got a point for a correct challenge. You have 15 seconds. Marble Arch is a subject, and you start now.
Marble Arch was designed by John Nash sometime in the...
Julian challenge.
Repetition of John.
Yeah. You said John Betjeman before. And you said...
I thought I said Betjeman.
No, first of all you said John Betjeman.
Did I?
Yes.
That was a stupid thing to do.
After all the years you've played it,
I
too.
know.
Yes, yes. So, Julian, it's lovely. We're going to hear from you. We're hearing from everybody on this first round, and there are 12 seconds left. You've got your first point, and the subject's Marble Arch, starting now.
I used to have a little dog called Fanny the Wonder Dog, and I lived in Seymour.
Jenny, challenge.
Dog and dog.
Oh, yes, of course.
Yes.
Oh, it's such a difficult game, isn't it?
Yes.
Jenny, you've got another point for a
At least
correction.
his name wasn't John.
Jenny, 9 seconds still available. Marble Arch, starting now.
Marble Arch is made from white marble and unfortunately placed on a middle of a busy roundabout. Middle.
So, Julian, you've got in cleverly with 2 seconds to
It's
go.
almost cruel, Julian.
No, it isn't. You've all got points, and it's
Yeah.
wonderful. And 2 seconds. Julian, Marble Arch, starting now.
I used to walk my canine friend right
And at the end of that round, Julian is in the lead. Well, not surprising. He's got more points than anybody else. I'm surprised that nobody mentioned one of the salient things about Marble Arch. It is where Tyburn Gate used to be, where they used to do the public hangings in the old days. And nobody could care less about that, could they, really? So,
You used to compare, didn't you?
you know who your friends are on this show, don't you?
Get them warmed up.
Yes, sir. Jenny, would you begin the next round?
Yes.
Going south for the winter. Would you tell us something? I can't quite associate you with doing something like that somehow, Jenny.
Well, I might just surprise you.
Right, but anyway, would you talk on the subject? 60 seconds as usual, starting now.
Birds fly south for the winter, otherwise they would starve or freeze to death. Last Christmas, I went to Miami after I'd done panto. It was January. I needed some sun on my arthritic-y bones. Unfortunately, the weather wasn't that good, but you don't get your money back. How infuriating is that? You go all that way and think, I'm going to get some winter sunshine. Oh no, cloudy, overcast. Had to wear a cardigan most days. What a bore. What else? Where else could...
Paul, you challenged.
Yes, a hesitation.
Yes, I hesitate. Going south for the winter, Paul. 29 seconds, starting now.
Here in the Rada Theatre gives me the opportunity to audition. Now is the winter of our discontent, made glorious summer by this son of York and the clouds that loud upon our haft. Exterminate. Well, stop me then. Who stopped? I was in the middle of a soliloquy there.
I know.
Who stopped me then?
I did.
Julian did, yes.
I thought it
I mean, we're
best.
quite grateful. We were quite grateful the way it was going. Julian, your challenge.
Well, deviation. He wasn't talking about going south for
No,
the
I'm
winter.
treating it as an audition.
You failed.
You haven't seen me sea captain yet.
Julian, you've got the subject. You have 18 seconds. Going south for the winter, starting now.
Going south for the winter is what very posh people do. As soon as there's a chill in the air, they pack their Louis Vuitton clutch bags and off they trot. They need the sun. They need the...
Oh, Paul challenged.
2 quick needs.
Yes,
One
they
after the
were
other.
quite needy.
Yes.
And you needed to get it back again. And you've got 7 seconds, Paul, still. Going south for the winter, starting now.
The ship sails at midday. If you're going south for the winter, first stop past Rotherhithe, be Jamaica.
So, your impersonation of Robert Newton wasn't very successful, but it did manage to keep you going to the Whistling Went. And you're now equal in the lead with Julian Clary. And Richard Herring would like you to begin the next round. Richard, interesting. Foolishness. Can you talk on foolishness in 60 seconds, starting now?
As a comedian, foolishness is my meat and potatoes. I do a lot of foolish things. I grew a toothbrush moustache, trying to reclaim it for comedy, because Charlie Chaplin had it first, then Hitler came along, kind of ruined it for everyone. Probably the worst thing he ever did. I've jumped out of a plane for comedy. I've run through the...
Jenny challenged.
2 comedies.
Yes, it was too much comedy.
It was.
Can't have too much of it in this show, but unfortunately you can't mention the word. 43 seconds, Jenny. You've got another point, and you've got the subject. And it's foolishness, starting now.
You think you're going to grow out of foolishness, but what happens is your means of foolishness changes. Instead of staying out all night, drinking whiskey, doing the splits, you go to Sainsbury's and forget your nectar card, come home and put your car keys in the fridge. Then you can't find your handbag. What's going on? I've gone mad. Other foolish things one does is buy a pair of shoes in the sale. They're yellow, they're a 3, you're a 5. What have you done that for? Have you gone absolutely mad? Yes, you have. You're 52, you're quite hot. Everything's very difficult in your life, but you keep trying and trying your hardest.
One of the natural errors of this game. You're going like a bomb like that, and then you repeat it. Anyway, Paul, what is your...
Yes, it's repetition, sadly.
Yes, that's right, yes.
Sadly.
Paul, you've got in on foolishness. with 10 seconds to go, starting now.
Now, one of the great fools in royal history was a man who could apparently dance, whistle and fart at the same time. And the monarch of the day found this hilarious, and he's here tonight. He's very popular.
So Paul Merton was speaking as a whistle when gained that extra point for doing so, and he's taken the lead ahead of Julian, Clary, and then Jenny, Eclair, and Richard Herring in that sequence and order. Julian, we're with you to begin, and the subject now is Gretna Green. Tell us something about Gretna Green in this game, starting now.
When I was 16, I was madly in love with a girl called Emily Parker, and we decided...
Jenny Chan.
I think he might be deviating from the truth. I think it might have been Milo Parker.
No, I know what I'm saying.
He knows what he's saying.
It's quite possible for him to be in love with any woman if he wants to.
I'm very hurt by all this. Could I have an extra point?
Give him an extra point, he's hurt.
But Julian, it's got you a point because it was an incorrect challenge. And I believe it entirely what you said. And 57 seconds are still available. Gretna Green, Julian, starting now.
Gretna Green, here we come, I explained to my beloved, and on a train we hopped. But right behind us was her brother, and by the time we got halfway there, I changed my mind. He was gorgeous. And I think Jenny may have been right in her earlier assumption that it's not that side of the church on which I sit. I know what I like, and Gretna Green and marriage is not one of them in that respect of heterosexual couplings.
Paul, you challenged.
He reached a natural conclusion. Having addressed the nation, I think he came to a full stop there.
So, Paul, a correct challenge. And there's still 31 seconds available. Gretna Green starting now.
Gretna Green, whenever I think of those two words, I conjure up an image of newlyweds-to-be hurrying across the border on the midnight train from England to Scotland, getting off at Gretna Green, if not before, if the ticket collector's looking the other way, and then realising that the two of you shall be wed forever. As the sound...
Jenny challenged.
I was going to say wed and weds, but he did wed and weds. I am wrong. I am sorry.
Well, that's very honest. I might have given it to you. But no, you're quite right. 10 seconds are still available for you, Paul, because an incorrect challenge. Gretna Green, still with you, starting now.
One thinks of Benjamin's poem, Gretna Green.
Julian challenge.
Hesitation.
Yes, you did.
Did
rubbish. Yes. You realised you were speaking rubbish and you paused. You've got the subject back again, and you've got 7 seconds to tell us more about Gretna Green, starting now.
Within weeks of our marriage, she was riddled with cystitis, and I said, you've only got yourself to blame. It's nothing to do with me, my darling.
Oh, Junior, you do reveal so much about yourself.
Poor wife.
And you got the point for Speak of the Whistle. Went, and you're 1 point behind our leader, Paul Merton, followed by Jenny Eclair and Richard Herring in that order. Paul, we're back with you to begin, and the subject is the ghost train. Tell us something about that subject in this game, starting now.
If people remember Dad's Army and Arnold Ridley as Private Godfrey, they might be surprised to know that he was also a playwright and wrote a play called The Ghost Train in the 1920s, which was made into films many times over the years, particularly featuring Will Hay and Maud Marriott and Graham Moffat in a movie entitled Oh, Mr. Porter. Next train's gone. That was one of the catchphrases in the film. I can't repeat it. Film.
Julian challenge.
Repetition of film.
Yes.
Yeah, repetition of film, yes. Julian, correct challenge. 36 seconds still available. The ghost train, starting now.
The ghost train at Dymchurch in Kent is terrifying. It's pitch dark, and things crawl over your face as you chunder through the tunnel.
They won't let you in again.
That's how scary it is.
So, Jenny, what's your challenge?
Well, I don't think he should be chundering on a train where children might want to sit on the next ride.
Couldn't help myself.
So, what is it, your challenge, whether the rules are just a minute?
Deviation from cleanliness on trains.
No, I think if he wants to create a word and say he was chundering along, it sounded rather apt, actually, for train. So I think I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt, Julian.
Thank you.
And say you have another point, and you have 27 seconds. The Ghost Train, starting now.
By the time I cleaned up after myself, my eyes had acclimatized to the dark and luminous skulls were popping out. I shrieked, and indeed, there was a small seepage from below. I sat on a plastic bag in future. It is a terrifying ride. The Ghost Train, mark my words, is the place to be, and any second now, surely there will be a whistle that will put me out.
No, it's too late. Richard, you challenge.
Well, I think he was deviating there by discussing the game rather than...
No, he
the Ghost
paused,
Train.
hesitated,
I'll
didn't
say
he?
he hesitated
Yes,
as well.
No, that was tremendously quick and observant of you, Richard. And you got in with 1.5 seconds to go. So tell us in 1.5 seconds something about the Ghost Train starting now.
The Ghost Train on Weston-super-Mare Pier.
So Richard Herring was speaking as the whistle went, gained that extra point, and he has leapt forward, equal to Jenny in third place. There's some points behind our leader, who is now Julian Clary, 1 point ahead of Paul Merton. Jenny, it's your turn to begin again. Alternative remedies. Tell us something about those in this game starting now.
I don't diss alternative remedies, as many friends of mine have benefited from these things, though the time I tried to rid myself of an unsightly wart by rubbing it with a banana skin didn't work. In fact, I had to visit the doctor and get it removed with liquid nitrogen. Other things they suggest you try are St. John's wort, 4PMS, though I find biscuits and cooking sherry much more effective. But there's all sorts of things that you can look up in alternative remedy books and maybe heal yourself of the things that are hurting you or making you a bit mad. Unfortunately,
Julian Janet.
Well, there was repetition of things, and may have been repetition of unfortunately as well.
Yes.
Unfortunately, there
Unfortunately, yes. But you did keep going for 42 seconds.
Oh.
That's the irony of this game. You do all the hard work and somebody comes in and gets the points.
Oh, I'll get him. Don't worry.
That's the confidence we like. Julian, you have another point. You have 18 seconds and you have alternative remedies starting now.
In the 80s, I used to perform as a character called Gillian Pieface, who was a mistress of alternative remedies. The laying on of hands was the highlight of each performance. I would appear in a black caftan, place my hands on someone's head.
Jenny challenge.
Hands.
Yes.
He had 2 hands, but he used them twice in his thing.
So, Jenny, poetic justice, you've got the subject back again, and only 2 seconds to go. And you've got the audience on your side as well. 2 seconds, Jenny. Alternative remedies starting now.
The alternative remedies that I favour for myself...
So, Jenny, Eclair, speaking as a whistle when again that extra point has leapt forward. She's in a strong third place behind Paul Merton and then Julie Clare in the lead, followed by Richard Herring. And, Richard, it's your turn to begin. Oh, a erudite subject for you, Richard. Icarus. Can you tell us something about Icarus in this game, starting now?
Icarus looked up and said, "If pretty little bluebirds fly above the rainbow, why can't I?" So he got his father, Daedalus, to make him some wings out of wax and feathers. I don't know where the waxy substance came from, possibly from a candle, maybe from his own ear canal. Who knows? Not me, that's for sure. But then he jumped off of a cliff and flapped his arms like a cormorant and took off, soaring high above the clouds and falling down, but then drifting up again. And he did all the things that starlings do. He landed on trees, he ate some worms, he pooped on people's heads. What's that coming down out the sky? Don't worry, Aristotle.
Thank
you.
Jenny, you challenged.
2 skies.
There was 2 skies, yes. And you didn't get...
I had no idea what I was saying, to be honest. I'm amazed that... Thank you for letting the above go.
Jenny, there are still 21 seconds available. You tell us something about Icarus, starting now.
The trouble with Icarus is that he didn't listen to his father.
Richard challenge.
That was a hesitation.
Yes, all right, Jenny.
You didn't listen.
All right.
Well, No, I'll give you the benefit of the doubt. Jenny, if I can redress the balance, it was only just a hesitation, but I'd like to hear more from Richard on
What
Icarus.
happened was the sneeze was coming and I didn't want to... I hadn't got a tissue.
As a gentleman, I recognised that, so I thought I'd give you a chance to sneeze.
Right.
That's why I...
Jenny, there's still 18 seconds available. You tell us something about Icarus starting now.
The moral of Icarus's tale is that children, you should listen to your parents. Icarus's dad told him not to fly too close to the sun or his wings would melt. What did Icarus, the big know-all, do? He went far too close to that burning orb and landed in the sea.
Julian, you challenge.
Repetition of close.
Oh, yes. He was getting quite close, yes. And Julian, you've got him with 3 seconds to go. Oh. So another point, and you have the subject of Icarus starting now.
Upwards Icarus flew as if he were a bird in the sky.
So Julian Clary again speaketh the whistle when gained that extra point and has increased his lead at the end of that round, ahead of Paul, Merton, Jenny, Eclair and Richard Herring in that order. And Julian, we're back with you to begin, actually. The subject now is my potting shed. Tell us something about my potting shed, starting now.
Every afternoon, I pop my dungarees on, clutch my trowel, and head for my potting shed. My red-hot poker is the talk of Kent. People come for miles, and it's there where I scatter my seeds, and then I get my watering can out and sprinkle that around, and really, my fingers are green, as the audience here can see. My potting shed is where all the action is. In the height of summer, I might wear a singlet and a thong, but I can't guarantee that. I'm on my own there. It doesn't really matter what goes on. I've got gingham curtains covering the frosted glass. The sun peeks in, and my potting shed really is the centre of my life. It's rustic, you see, which is what I like. The dogs come in and shelter. I have a bowl of something refreshing for them, should they want a drink, and there's a fridge in the corner where gin and tonic may be available to the occasional visitor.
Julian, that was wonderful, and you got that thunderous round of applause which you deserved. It hasn't happened for a very long time. Somebody started with the subject and kept going without hesitation, repetition, or deviation, not being challenged. So you get a point for speaking when the whistle went, and a bonus point because you were not interrupted. And you've increased your lead at the end of the round. No one else spoke. And back with you, Paul, for the next subject to begin. A ham sandwich. Tell us something about that in this game. Starting now.
Well, the constituents of a ham sandwich are quite simple. First of all, you must make sure you know where your meat has come from. It must be a pig that has supplied the flesh rather than something that might wear a sheepskin noseband. It is around about at this time that I have completely forgotten the subject because I am so enamoured by the accent I have put on. Nevertheless, I should tell you that Isambard...
Deviating from the subject.
Why?
Well, he said he's forgotten about the subject. And
No,
so...
yes, right. He was talking about his accent, wasn't he?
Yeah.
None of us could understand a word he said anyway.
I told you I was auditioning.
Quite a clever one. Now you have the benefit of the doubt, Richard, and you have a ham sandwich.
Oh, that was it, yeah.
You have the subject of a ham sandwich. 36 seconds starting now.
I had a ham sandwich just before I came on stage today. Downstairs in the green room, there is a selection of breads and meat and cheese, and I took a piece of bread. They don't make it for you.
Oh.
Breads are...
Paul, sons, yeah, too much
breads,
bread.
Selection of breads.
Yes.
Yes, I know, but you can't repeat them in just a minute.
But I said breads and bread, didn't I?
No.
No.
Selection of breads and a piece of bread. Oh, yeah.
Betchman and Betchmans.
Even if you didn't, you got the audience on your side, and that's working. Right, so 25 seconds are still available. Incorrect challenge, Richard. A ham sandwich with you starting now.
Piccalilli is always nice if you put it inside a ham sandwich. Other things that go nicely are mustard. You can have English or French, or you just make it yourself out of some seeds. You can also put in some lettuce, some tomato.
Jenny challenge.
Some
this of this and some that, yes. Jenny, you've gone in on this subject with 11 seconds to go. A ham sandwich starting now.
The trick to the perfect ham sandwich is good ham, poor quality mustard, pulpy white bread. Keep it simple. Otherwise, if you want it a bit fancy, go for a crusty French loaf and some...
So Jenny Eclair was then speaking as a whistle went. She really has leapt forward. She is now in second place, 1 ahead of Paul Merton, 3 or 4 ahead of Richard Herring, and out in the lead ahead of all of them is Julian Clary, and we're moving into the final round. What a lovely audience you are. Jenny, it's your turn to begin, and the subject is choose your own adventure. Don't know what the hell it means, but talk on the subject if you can. Starting now.
If I were to choose my own adventure, it would not involve a rucksack or sensible footwear trekking across inclement
Richard, challenge.
Some hesitation.
There was a hesitation.
Increasingly.
So, Richard, you've got another point. You have the subject. There are 52 seconds available. Choose your own adventure, starting now.
As a child, I had many choose-your-own-adventure books. You'd open up, you're usually a warlock in a mountain. You'd be there with an elf in a little room, and they'd say, do you want to kill the known creature that is ahead of you, or would you rather make love to it? Turn to page 8 if you want to... Good job you stopped me, because it was going to get a bit graphic there.
Jenny, you challenge first.
Repetition of if you and if you.
If you, yes. So, Jenny, you've got the subject back again, and you have 35 seconds still available. Choose your own adventure, starting now.
My personal adventure would be to go to the Marble Arch branch of Marks and Spencer and find the absolute perfect pleated skirt, or even a flattering pair of jeans with an elasticated waist. What fun I would have raking through the rails and nodding at other women my age in that sympathetic way that we do, which is basically saying, we're all on the same adventure. What size are you? A 16. Me too. Used to be a 14. What's happened to us? Let's go and have a little pie downstairs in the adventurous cafe down in that.
Oh, Paul, you've challenged.
Well, I don't know if I'm right, because I was going to say down, but it's downstairs is one word, isn't it?
Yes, downstairs is one word.
Yeah, so downstairs and down isn't repetition.
No, it's not repetition.
But I'm glad to hear it's one of her great adventures to discuss.
So, Jenny, you were challenged with 2 seconds to go.
Yeah, absolutely.
You have another point, and you have choose your own adventure. 2 seconds, starting now.
Take me up the Shard.
Well, let me give you the final score. Richard Herring has only played the game twice before. He finished in a very strong 4th place, actually. No, but it's the contributions important. It was lovely. And Paul, who often wins, he finished in 3rd place. Oh, yes. We're all vulnerable, but all vulnerable. And Jenny, who leapt from nowhere to take 2nd place. Yes. And she's 2 points behind our winner, who is extremely fluent throughout. And so we say, Julian Clary, you are the winner this week. We do hope you have enjoyed this edition of Just a Minute. It only remains me to say thank you again to our 4 intrepid players of the game, Paul Merton, Julian Clary, Richard Herring and Jenny Eclair. I thank Trudy Stevens, who helped me with the score, blown her whistle so delicately. We're grateful to our producer, to Lucia Gilani. We're indebted to Ian Messiter, who created this amazing game. And we're indebted to this lovely audience here at the Rada Theatre, who cheered us on our way magnificently. From our audience, from me, Nicholas Parsons, and the team, thank you. Tune in again the same time when we play Just a Minute! Welcome to Just a Minute. Thank you. Hello. My name is Nicholas Parsons, and as the minute waltz fades away, it's my huge pleasure to welcome our many listeners, not only in this country, but around the world, but also to welcome to the programme 4 distinguished and talented humorous performers who are going to show their skill and talent. And they are seated on my right, Paul Merton and Sheila Hancock, and seated on my left, Marcus Brigstock and Josie Lawrence. Please welcome all 4 of them. I'm going to ask them to speak on a subject that I will give them, and they will try and do that without hesitation, repetition, or deviation. Beside me sits Sharon Leonard, who's going to help me with the score and blow a whistle when the 60 seconds have elapsed. And this particular edition of Just a Minute is coming from the Radio Theatre in the heart of Broadcasting House. And we're going to begin the show with Paul Merton. Who better? Paul, the subject I have here is spring cleaning. Tell us something about spring cleaning in just a minute, starting now.
Well, it's very important that you get a good quality oil and a cloth. And if you are going to clean any particular spring, I'd start with the ones inside the sofa. Those springs have been there for some time and have taken a great deal of body weight down the years. If you come from a hefty family, then you want to make sure your springs are nicely cleaned so that you can...
Oh, Josie, challenge.
Sorry, there were 2 springs.
That's right.
Yes.
On the card it says spring cleaning, and so it's a plural. Josie, well listened. You have a point for a correct challenge. Don't look surprised, darling.
No.
You're always a bit in awe when you come with the show. It's
I'm in
lovely.
awe of you, that's why.
Oh, darling. Because you know I've always fancied you like mad. There are 42 seconds left, Josie. And the subject is spring cleaning, and you start now.
Soon it will be that time of year again. You always know it's coming. The sun shines through the window panes.
Marcus challenged.
Deviation. You don't always know it's coming if, for example, it's autumn.
I said it was that time of year again.
Marcus, I'm sorry. Think logically, you know that spring is always coming eventually.
Oh, I must say, Nicholas, that's very optimistic. What did I do?
I mean,
I've got a black mark
is
now,
that the world you live in, that continuous winter?
Pretty much.
No, an incorrect challenge, I think.
No.
So Josie has another point. She keeps the subject, and there are 35 seconds for spring cleaning, starting now.
There's dust everywhere. It's time to spring clean. And I know just a person to do it. Manuel. He's my favourite cleaner, and about May the 1st, he comes around. Now, this may seem a little...
Paul challenge.
It's a bit late for a spring clean. May the 1st. A bit late.
Yeah, that's a difficult decision for me to make.
Is it?
Well,
Would you
yes,
like a
I agree
calendar?
with you. No. I do know that May the 1st is not the spring. First day of spring is actually the 20th of March.
It is, but Manuel doesn't know that.
I know. And Josie may decide to do her spring cleaning on the 1st of May.
Of course.
And though it is not the usual time. So I'm going to be generous, Josie,
Thank
and
you.
say you have another point. You keep the subject, 22 seconds available, spring cleaning starting now.
I always find it's best to work from the top down to the bottom. So I start in the bedroom.
Sheila challenged.
Was there 2 starts?
There was.
Yes, there was.
There was.
So Sheila,
There
well
was.
listened. You have a...
Did somebody hear the crossrail link underneath us?
So, Sheila, you got your first point, and you've got 16 seconds still available. Tell us something about spring cleaning starting now.
I have decided that I have to spring clean my life in preparation for the impending death. So I am starting at the top of my house, and I'm going to throw everything out that I don't absolutely need. And
In this game, whoever is speaking as the whistle goes gains an extra point, and it was Sheila Hancock, so she has 2 points. Josie has 3. The others have yet to score, and we move on to... Josie, it's your turn to begin, actually.
Thank you.
Here's the subject. On a stormy night. 60 seconds as usual, starting now.
On a stormy night, the wind is howling, making the black clouds race across the moon like witches on broomsticks. Umbrellas are being turned inside out. Cats put out for the night are blown.
Paul challenged.
2 outs.
Yes.
Oh.
Inside out and put out.
Inside out and out.
If you're giving birth, would you name it after me?
Paul, correct challenge. You have On a Stormy Night And you have 45 seconds starting now.
Charles Dickens was making his way from London to Portsmouth. The rain was howling with the wind.
Sheila Hancock.
I don't think rain howls.
No.
No. It might feel like it, but it doesn't. Sheila, correct challenge. You have 40 seconds. Tell us something about On a Stormy Night, starting now.
On a stormy night in, I think it was 1987, I woke up and looked out of the window and the trees were bending in half. It was a hurricane in London. And when...
Marcus challenge.
Was a deviation by way of an upgrade from a simple storm to a hurricane.
I mean, Marcus, I'm sorry. I mean, I'd love to give you a chance to speak, but the point is that you can have a very stormy night, and it could be a hurricane.
Well, how stormy, Nicholas? I mean, how stormy is that?
I don't think that really matters in just a minute.
Well, fair enough.
It's a stormy night. If it's a hurricane, it's still a stormy night.
There's been a lot of rule changes since I was last here.
We know one thing, the rain wasn't howling. That much we know.
27 seconds still available, Sheila, on a stormy night, starting now.
I seem to remember that the weatherman said there wasn't going to be a gale, but the next day when I went into Hyde Park, there were trees.
Josie challenge.
Trees was repeated.
Yes, because she said you were bending, the trees were bending.
Was I?
Well,
Yes.
listen,
Well
Josie.
done.
19 seconds for you, Josie, having got another point. On a stormy night, starting now.
On a stormy night, I found myself abandoned in a broken-down car in a country lane. It was a terrible thing for me. I had just half a packet of boiled sweets that I'd found under the seat. Dolly Parton had been singing I Will Always Love You, and suddenly the radio stopped. The battery was dead.
Well, Josie Lawrence was then speaking as a whistle went, getting an extra point. It's a very interesting thing is the two girls are way out in front there, ahead of Marcus and Paul. Paul got 1 point. Marcus has yet to score, but he's been trying very hard. And
Well, he's
Marcus,
been trying.
we'd like you to begin the next round.
Yes.
A subject here which I'm very fascinated by, urban foxes. Tell us something about those creatures in this game, starting now.
Urban foxes are very similar to ordinary countryside foxes, except they speak like this and there is a bit tougher, you get me? Because they eat food from bins and they like chewing nappies overnight and things. So they're not to be trusted. I don't like them at all. However, they are not to be mistaken with...
Sheila challenge?
2 knots.
2 knots.
They are not to be trusted. They are not.
Quite right.
I mean, I wouldn't have minded, but you kind of emphasised it as well, didn't you? You said they are not to be trusted.
Yes. That we didn't justify it, my darling. It was correct challenge. And you have the subject of urban foxes, and you have 44 seconds starting now.
I love urban foxes. I'm going to start the Hammersmith Hunt because we have these beautiful, red, large, smelly, dog-like creatures sitting in our square, and they're almost tame. They eat pussycat.
Your challenge.
Hesitation.
Yes, definitely. Right. Paul, the 26 seconds still available. Urban foxes starting now.
It was midnight. The bins were full. He walked down the alley. He was an urban fox, and he knew it. He looked over the window. A cat looked down at him, and he thought to himself, she's a cute babe, but I'm on the hunt for my supper. As he walked through the cold, hard streets of the metropolis, he suddenly heard a voice in his ear. It was Thelma. He hadn't heard her speak since that day.
Marcus challenge.
I'm gutted to have stopped that, but repetition of heard.
Yes. And you've got him with 5 seconds to go.
Oh. Well, I'm sorry. I'll try and spoil it, shall I?
No, that's the rules of the game, and 5 seconds you've got on urban foxes, Marcus, starting now.
Once I met a turban fox. He was a Sikh and seemed like a very nice sort of chap, but...
So, Marcus, you were speaking as the whistle went, gained that extra point, and at the end of the round you have 2 points, and you're equal with Paul, and behind Sheila and Josie, because they're equal in first place. Right. Sheila, will you begin the next round? Eavesdropping. Tell us something about that subject in this game, starting now.
Eavesdropping is something I really enjoy. It used to drive my husband absolutely insane because when I went to a restaurant with him, I would constantly say, "Shh, I want to hear what they're saying behind me. They're having a wonderful row and it's much more interesting than you are." Nowadays, it's rather spoiled because people are tweeting and you eavesdrop.
Paul challenge.
Hesitation, unfortunately, on Eve's tweet.
Yes. That was
Tweeting. I invented a word.
a stumble which we interpret as hesitation. Paul, there are 37 seconds. Tell us something about eavesdropping starting now.
You don't get the crossed line anymore. I used to enjoy that on the telephone when you hear that click at the other end of the line and you knew somebody was...
Oh, Marcus challenge.
A repetition of line.
Yes, line to Marcus. They're all so sharp today, aren't they? And there are 30 seconds still available, Marcus. Eavesdropping starting now.
The weirdest thing I ever heard whilst eavesdropping was on a bus, and one woman said to another, "It'll be no use to him now. Well, not as a leg anyway." And I was just fascinated to discover what the rest of that conversation could possibly have been about and who it concerned. Whoever it was no doubt in a dire state. Oh, you can't... Sometimes if you put them together, no one spots it.
Paul, you've gone in first with a challenge there. We know what it was. 10 seconds available. Eavesdropping starting now.
I remember once walking down towards Buckingham Palace, and there was a gentleman in the park just next to me who said, with his eyes burning with huge intent, "I will..."
So Paul Merton was seeking as a whistle went, gain the next point.
Can't we hear what it was?
I've got no idea. I was making it.
It was all coming spontaneously off the top of his head, as it does. And now we have an interesting situation. Sheila Hancock, Josie Lawrence and Paul Merton are all equal in first place, and just behind them is Marcus Brigstock. And Paul, it's your turn to begin again, and the subject now is artificial intelligence. Tell us something about that. 60 seconds as usual, starting now.
In the film 2001, the computer Hal has such lines as, "I can't do that, Dave," when the astronaut wants him to perform some menial function. Later on, this same piece of artificial intelligence utters such lines as, "It's time for your nap now." And I think...
Sheila Hancock,
Time for?
Could be.
What was the first one? It's time
I don't know, you
for
tell
your
me.
something. And then no.
Was it?
No, it was time travel, wasn't it?
I'm sorry, I can't do that, Dave.
I
think.
thought you said time for. Never mind, go on.
So there are 43 seconds. An incorrect challenge, Paul. More about artificial intelligence, starting now.
Garry Kasparov, the Russian chess champion, played a machine called, I think, Deep Blue at the aforementioned game. And after 3 or 4 draws, the artificial intelligence thing actually beat him. And this was considered extraordinary. Because somebody once suggested you will only know that artificial intelligence is here when it will be unable to tell the difference between that and a human being. And this is what was achieved in... Oh, yes, Frankie. I went off on one, did you notice? Yes. No.
So, Sheila, you challenged.
Well, unfortunately, you did Frank's hesitations, didn't it?
All right, Sheila, 14 seconds. Tell us something about artificial intelligence, starting now.
I know nothing about the sort of artificial intelligence. Can't even say it.
Can't even say it.
So what's your challenge, Paul?
Deviation.
Deviation, hesitation, yes. 12 seconds. Back with you, Paul, another point as well. Artificial intelligence, starting now.
The squares on the board were occupied by all the men. When he looked down to see what this infernal device had achieved, he realised that the era of the human chess player was in the past.
So Paul Merton was speaking as the whistle went, only just.
I've had too much caffeine, that's what it is.
And you've taken the lead, Paul. You're 2 ahead of Sheila Hancock and 3 ahead of Josie Lawrence and 4 or 5 ahead of Marcus Brigstock. Josie, we'd like you to begin the next round. A dark horse. 60 seconds on that subject, if you can, starting now.
Well, it's not Black Beauty, if that's what you're thinking. Let me tell you a little story. There was this horse called Little Nell. And she... Oh, I said
Marcus
little
challenge.
twice.
Yes,
didn't I?
little twice.
A little,
a repetition.
yes, little story and Little Nell. Right. So, Marcus, you've got in with 52 seconds to go still on A Dark Horse, starting now.
A dark horse is usually somebody who you have nothing against, but you just don't trust them. And so you start to spread malicious gossip, suggesting that they may have some dirty little secret, but you've no evidence to support the notion that they're anything other than a perfectly ordinary person. That's why Lloyd's Bank chose one to advertise what they do, because they like to keep all sorts of nasty things hidden from the rest of us.
Sheila Hancock.
Two nasties.
Yeah, two nasties.
Well, I was talking about Lloyd's.
Right. But Sheila, it was a correct challenge, and you have 26 seconds on A Dark Horse, starting now.
When I was evacuated, I'd never met horses and cows because I lived in the city, and there was a field at the back of the place I was billeted with this dark horse, and I walked miles to avoid going through that particular meadow because this thing terrified me, and I've hated horses ever since. I think they're stupid animals. They only move if you squeeze their thighs and pull at them and kick them and...
Oh, Sheila, as we are a nation of horse lovers, I don't think that's endeared you to your listeners.
I should get an avalanche of letters now.
Yes.
I'm not a horse lover. I don't even eat burgers.
Sheila Hancock was then speaking as the whistle went, gained that extra point, and she's now equal in the lead with Paul Merton, and that was a dark horse. I thought someone was going to talk about the Miss Marple show on television in which I played a part called The Dark
That was a pantomime horse, wasn't it?
No, I was the dark horse at the beginning who was murdered.
Oh, were you?
And it's a very interesting thing how literally people take things. Because when I was, the very next day, I joined a cruise ship as an entertainer, and people said, well, what are you doing here? You were murdered yesterday.
Were you in a skin?
No, I was playing an Irish priest, actually.
Oh. I see. You're using it metaphorically.
What?
The dark horse.
No, he wasn't dressed as a horse.
He wasn't dressed as a horse.
A horse doing an Irish accent.
Right. Marcus, it's your turn to begin.
Right.
The subject now is camouflage. Can you tell us something about that subject in this game, starting now?
The idea of camouflage is to wear something that will blend you in effectively with your background. A lot of Demutanting like to wear these sorts of clothes when they're walking into Weatherspoons. I can always see them, so I make sure I attack them as if I were in the army.
Josie Childs.
Sorry, two them's quite close together.
Oh, yes.
Oh, yes.
Tough challenge, but correct.
No, fair enough.
No, Josie, you have a correct challenge. You have 45 seconds. Camouflage starting now.
Sometimes when the Territorial Army go for a picnic in the woods, all you can see is the gingham tablecloth and a plate of cheese sandwiches. That's because they are wearing camouflage. Tommy always has a little stripe of brown soil on either cheek. You can't see him when he stands next to a tree. And then there's Lucy, who prefers the green goo and lies down on the lawn pretending she's blades of grass. She's not in the Territorial Army, which I just said.
Marcus, you challenge.
A repetition of Territorial Army.
Yeah, the Territorial Army came up too soon. So, Marcus, you have a correct challenge. 13 seconds are still available. Camouflage starting now.
The chameleon is an expert at camouflage, able to blend in with any background, as I tested in a pet shop only recently by taking in some incredibly colourful jumpers. Gyles Brandreth didn't mind standing near the...
Marcus Brigstock was then speaking as the whistle Wayne gained that extra point, and he's moved forward. He's equal with Josie Lawrence in second place, and they're 2 points behind our leaders, Paul Merton and Sheila Hancock. Sheila, it's your turn to begin. Fiscal cliff. I don't know why they're laughing, but it's something which in the newspapers quite a lot these days. Tell us something about that subject in this game starting now.
Fiscal Cliff is situated somewhere in the Outer Hebrides. It's named after Fiscal MacDonald, who's a close relative to Fingal, who is the caveman. He was was a soldier in the First World War and wrote poetry along with Siegfried Sassoon, and they decided he was such a splendid bloke that they would name the cliff that he jumped on.
Well done. You kept going for 31 seconds. No, the 31 seconds available. 29 seconds, isn't there? So, Paul, you challenged.
Hesitation.
Yes, that's right. Fiscal cliff is with you. 31 seconds starting now.
It seems to be a fiscal cliff in some countries. Other territories, it seems to resemble a flooded...
Oh, Sheila challenge.
Hesitation?
Yeah.
Yeah. Fiscal cliff is back with you, Sheila. Which is exactly what you wanted, isn't it? And there are 26 seconds available, starting now.
As I understand it, which is only very slightly, it's something to do with the difference between the amount that you can take in taxation in comparison with the revenue and the outgoings. Osama is very... Well, not Bin Laden. No, Obama.
So, Marcus, your challenge.
Yeah, a deviation, but it's the same deviation the Tea Party make all the time, so I think we should probably forgive it as it goes.
Well, no, but it was a correct challenge, so, Marcus, you have a point, and you have 10 seconds on fiscal cliff, starting now.
The brinksmanship that exists between the Republicans and the Democrats in the United States is truly astonishing to the rest of us, since we care so little about the tiny difference between the two of them. They're all nuts over there. They drove as fast...
Marcus Brigstock speaking. As the whistle went, gained that extra point. He's leapt forward. He's in second place now. 1 point behind our joint leaders, Sheila Hancock and Paul Merton. And as people sometimes write to me, because they get the whole premise of the show wrong, and say, you didn't pull up Marcus when he repeated difference. You did repeat it. It doesn't matter. No one challenged you.
Did I?
Yes. They didn't spot it.
Right, exactly.
But a listener might spot it, and then they write to me and say, why didn't you penalise him?
Well, if they buzz in by post, I think it is a bit late.
It's too late, Marcus, you're there. They're all very close. It's very exciting. And, Paul, it's your turn to begin. The last time I went to France. A lovely subject. Tell us something about it in this game, starting now.
The last time I went to France, I was filming in the Champagne region, and there are various champagnes throughout France.
Oh, no. One's singular and one's plural.
Oh, that's
Sorry.
right.
Yeah.
He's played the game quite a lot. So, Paul, an incorrect challenge. You still have 54 seconds. The last time I went to France, starting now.
And I met this man called Pierre, who had built this magnificent giant roller skate, which he placed his body on, and would go hurtling down hills up to approximate speeds of about 50...
Oh, no. That was a mistake. I'm sorry. I got to sort of St. Vitus dance.
Well, you're sitting in the seat that Clement Freud used to sit in, and I imagine that was a Freudian slip.
That accounts.
So Sheila will be generous and won't charge anything on that and say, Paul, there are still 45 seconds for you to tell us something about the last time I went to France, starting now.
He thought this would make his fortune, but unfortunately he was the only individual who could actually drive the thing. And it was exceedingly dangerous. You can't imagine any health and safety culture allowing some invention that's approximately 4 inches off the ground, hurtling down mountains.
Oh, Josie challenged.
Hurtling twice.
Yes, he had a bit of hurtling, too much hurtling there. And you can't have too much hurtling in this show, can we?
No.
31 seconds are still available, Josie. Tell us something about the last time I went to France.
The last time I went to France, I went to Gay Paris. I was doing something for a morning television programme. They wanted me to interview the girls at the Moulin Rouge, and the star at the time, whose name I won't mention, just in case, a tiny American lady surrounded by bodyguards. I bought her English tea and biscuits, but still, it was quite scary to be in the company of her and these strange gentlemen. At the end of the show, I was taken out by...
So Josie Lawrence was then speaking as the whistle went, again that extra point, and there's only 1 point that separates them all in ascending order. Third place, Marcus and Josie, and then Sheila Hancock, and then Paul Merton. Oh, I've just been told it's the final round.
Oh.
What a lovely audience you are. And Josie, it's your turn to begin. And the subject is vegetarian food. Tell us something about vegetarian food in just a minute, starting now.
I'm a carnivore, but I do enjoy a plate every now and then of vegetarian food. Real vegetarians, however, refuse to eat any kind of animal flesh, and vegans don't like eating leather shoes, apparently.
Oh, challenge.
Is it a repetition of eating?
Yes. 46 seconds, Paul. Another point to you. And the subject of vegetarian food starting now.
In China, they don't really get the concept of vegetarian food. The idea that somebody wouldn't eat meat to them is extraordinary anathema. It's absolutely mad.
Sheila challenge, yes.
Hesitation.
I call that hesitation. Yes, Sheila. So we're going to hear from you all on this subject. 37 seconds, still available. Vegetarian food, Sheila, starting now.
Many years ago, I was ill, and a doctor put me on a food diet.
Marcus challenge.
Hesitation.
Hesitation. So we
big
have heard from
hesitation.
everybody on this one. 31 seconds, Marcus, available still. Vegetarian food, starting now.
Vegetarian food is absolutely delicious unless you've ever tasted meat, which is far. A lot of vegetarians haven't yet learned this, but they will once the lentils and the pulses and chickpeas and beans run out and become the gooey paste that they inevitably do in your mouth. That said, I did attempt to be vegetarian for a while until the wind got the better of me and my family, and we all had to move into a tent, which very swiftly blew away. Not entirely my fault, I have to say. There was a stiff breeze.
Right. Josie Lawrence, who started off incredible style, but she finished up in what was third place, but she was only 1 point behind our second place to Sheila Hancock and Marcus Brigstock, but they were only 1 point behind Paul Merton. So we say, Paul, you are the winner this week. We do hope you've enjoyed this edition of Just a Minute. It only remains me to say thank you to these 4 fine players of the game: Paul Merton, Sheila Hancock, Josie Lawrence and Marcus Brigstock. I also thank Sharon Leonard, who's helped me with the score, blown her whistle so well. We're indebted to our producer, Talusha Gilani, and we're deeply indebted to Ian Messiter, who thought of this amazing game. And of course we're indebted to this lovely audience here in the Radio Theatre for cheering us on our way. From the audience, from the team, from me, Nicholas Parsons, thank you. Tune in again the next time we all play Just a Minute.